Hello and welcome to our final race of Session 4 for the Desert Rats Racing League. Our final race today is going to be taking place at Red Bull Ring in its short format. Leading the pack today is Chris. He's been doing an amazing job on his debut in the Desert Rats Racing League. And also making their debut today on the second position is going to be Zenpi, followed by Carlos, a favorite of the series from Season 0. Raccoon following up 4th position, 5th place being occupied by Captain himself. And then in the back, we have John and Finesse to finish off the rest of our group. Let's go ahead and get into these races as we hand it off to Webbo over in the commentary box.
Thank you so much from the studio. We're ready to go racing then around the Red Bull Ring. Short configuration, 17 laps, and it's dropped the clutch and go, go, go. That looks like it's possibly Carlos Quintal, who is storming into a fantastic lead as they head uphill into the tricky braking of turn 1. Look for drivers running wide on the outside. A short run then down towards turn 2, looping round in front of the cones on the inside, and then it's John and it's Captain Ahab getting all a little bit rough and ready as they go in towards Verth corner, then turn 3, and then it's a nice smooth one through turn 7 and 8 of the full configuration, but it's turn 4 heading downhill then back into the double right-hander to finish the race out. It's Rint corner onto the right hand, and it's Carlos Quintal ahead of Chris, ahead of Zingy. Raccoon then up to 4th position, much happier back in Europe then as we run then into the Red Bull Mobile corner, the final corner of the race, and it's Carlos Quintal ahead of Chris with Zingy, Raccoon, Captain Ahab and Finesse. John Alsona then with the problem at the start of the race, deposed down to 7th place with a big gap behind, but Quintal ahead of Chris with Zingy has already won 2 races on the bounce since his debut. Chrisworth is right there with him though this time, and now the roles are reversed. He's in front, but with Carlos Quintal back in town, it's certainly going to be a very, very different prospect for the newcomers here, Chrisworth and for Zingy. Raccoon though definitely keen to get back into winning or podiuming ways at least. Captain Ahab right behind Raccoon. Finesse is behind him and by a very small margin, but currently the front 2 separated by less than 7/10 of a second. Firing out of the final corner they go to finish out lap 2, and Quintal leads by half a second only from Chrisworth. Late on the brakes, uphill, you can really lean on the track here, and running out over that exit curb but just about staying legal is Chrisworth. Now the gap down to 2/10 of a second, but when are the opportunities going to rise in these little nimble mini challenges? Low top speed overall, but great maneuverability and most importantly massive amounts of fun. That was different lines by all 3 in the podium positions as Raccoon with his typically stiff setup, and we go empty race suit, headless right on board with Chrisworth. I love this view, it's so entertaining. Here we are back onto the hood and picking up the curb through the final corner, and Carlos Quintal is just 5/10, half a second only ahead as they go through to start that lap for Chrisworth. Just keeping the tyres in a good place at the moment, trying to stay within track limits, but not a single driver managing to stay 4 wheels on the asphalt as they run wide onto the runoff here at the Red Bull Ring in the Spielberg region of Austria, surrounded by the mountains and usually the ubiquitous orange flare smoke, but there's no sign of that from a fairly poorly attended race today so far on board with Raccoon. Briefly as we go for the back-to-back winner Zingy, and we keep a very close eye on what's happening in front. Zingy in no rush to get to the front of the race at the moment, it seems, happy to play third fiddle, as it were, in the race so far, as Chrisworth is far from satisfied with second best right now, finishing out lap 4, starting lap 5. There's Chrisworth, more aggressive on the brakes. I think it looks like Quintal with a gentler braking action, or at least a more softly sprung car as they head into that turn 2. They'll go almost identical left-hander then after turn 2 into Verth corner, which is typically turn 7 of the main circuit here, and continuing to run then down towards Rint Corner. Now the first sign of a little bit of daylight separating Quintao and Crisworth. Looks like Quintao settling into a good rhythm. Zingy in third, Raccoon in fourth, with Captain Ahab in fifth. We haven't seen Finesse since lap one, and John also 6 seconds back, with a long race to run all the way back there. It's 29 degrees centigrade here. That's a balmy warm day for Austrian standards. 39 degrees centigrade track temperature. This is how the pre-session total points. You can see Darius and John there, I think that is, tied for third place despite Darius's grid penalty and activities in session 2 of Montreal. I see he's not been able to show today, so I'm assuming his grid penalty will be delayed for his next planned qualifying session. Number 97, Zingy, the back-to-back wheeler. Then you see Raccoon getting all that Austrian red and white paint all over his tyres out there. And Raccoon obviously keen to get into this mix for the podium, currently held by Quintao, Crisworth and Zingy, and in exactly that order. The laps are flying by at this incredibly short circuit racetrack setup we have at the Red Bull Ring. Just glimpse the Sound of Music style mountains in the background, but number 28 leads. This is Captain Ahab chasing down Raccoon. No sign of any mountainous change of weather conditions at this stage of our proceedings, but it looks to be dry with a gentle wind. An absolute perfect day's racing for the drivers here at the visit to Austria in this Desert Rats Racing League Season 1. Running through Rint Corner in towards the final corner of the lap, and everything just needs to be pinpoint perfect as they run through these corners to try and do anything about Carlos Quintao, your race leader, as they start lap 8 of the 17, nearing this halfway distance now. Crisworth is very close. We're under 0.3 of a second. It's 1/4 of a second now. It's as close as he's been, and unfortunately Finesse retires on this lap 8. Very unfortunate for him, having made the trip over from Canada to only be able to run 8 laps before the end of today's running. This is Zingy on board with the pink and purple Trax Wi-Fi car on board then, almost in a race suit of Crisworth, as we look for any vulnerabilities on the British Racing Green car of Carlos Quintao. A very good mini colour for the British designed but German built BMW Mini Clubman here as we continue. This is of course round 3 of the session. And running on out of turn 1. Crisworth still very close, just waiting for the move to come. Crisworth wide as he runs through. That's a beautiful switchback, but a mistimed switchback. He makes full contact then with the Mini, tries to help correct it. Through goes Zingy around the inside, completely innocent from any of that because he can claim that position. It looked like Crisworth trying to do the sporting thing by allowing Quintao to stay ahead. But of course, that has cost both drivers a huge amount of time. That is avoidable contact. Excuse me, as Quintao did a massively impressive job of holding on to the car and not going into a full spin. But Zingy goes through, and now Quintao has to get that first place back from second, as of course it was taken from him, unfortunately. As they run through then, Zingy ahead of Carlos Quintao, Crisworth, but that's helped Raccoon as well to get into the mix. Zingy getting excited out front, and his first opportunity to get into the final 2 corners, and he's very wide. Looks like he's got away with it though. Stewart's not issuing any warnings through the exit of Rint at that final corner here. 2 very tricky right-handers course, most corners are right-handers on this very short circuit. Heading down towards turn 2 now. Quintao just 1/3 of a second away from the lead, and very close behind, just 4/10 further back, is Chrisworth, the dented and battered mini clubman of Carlos Quintao. Has a lot of work to do now. He's got to play offense and defense at this stage, with Raccoon in 4th place, now some distance away, as the top 3 start to lift each other's pace higher and higher as they run and rush to try and make the best out of this possible round 3 here. Lap 11 starts, and we're getting into the business end of our Red Bull Ring short circuit round of the Desert Rats Racing League first season here on Automobilista. So it is Zingy leading by 1/4 of a second only. Looks like Quintao with a much better apex through turn 2. Can he claim the run? But surely no. He closes the door to his rival on the run through Verth corner, picks up a collision warning. So very much closes off. I think that was just a misjudgment from Quintao. I wonder if he'll give the place back or just maintain his advantage here. He may be feeling a little bit aggrieved, a little bit cheated out of his P1, and like he's owed it. Of course, Zingy did nothing to precipitate the contact earlier on. He's the innocent party in all of this. Unfortunately, though, he's running wide now. I wonder if he's picked up a little bit of dirt on the tyres as he runs out wide, got pushed out wide and onto the grass momentarily. Now he's on the defence, because here comes Chrisworth to get right into the mix. 5 to go then for our fantastic mini racers. And running through turn 1 as Chrisworth tries to steal every inch of the curbing on the apex and the exit through turn 1. Nicky Lauda curve. Heading down to turn 2 as we try and get that advantage back once again. But both drivers now being distanced very slightly by Quintao. Of course, the drivers all in identical machinery with fixed setup, so it's all about how the driver themselves can handle the car and the track combination on any given opportunity. Into Rindt corner then, so named after Jochen Rindt, the great Formula 1 world champion of Austria. Running through, that's a great run from Chrisworth. He definitely deserves the extra speed boost that gives him, slingshotting out of the final corner and starting lap 13. Chrisworth with just the nose ahead heading into turn 1. Hopefully he'll be able to hold on to this and go off in search of that win once again. So as they were at the start of the race, they are once again 1, 2, 3. It's Quintao, Chrisworth and Zingy. Raccoon in 4th position, Captain Ahab in 5th, John in 6th place with Finesse, our retiree from the race so far. So 6 runners remain in what is a frantically and fraught battle around the Styrian Mountains here in the Spielberg region of the great nation of Austria. Quintao ahead by now a whole second plus from Chrisworth. Quintao will... Wow, the 3 cars running nose to tail past our static camera there. That was tremendous speed, as tucked right up. Couldn't be closer between Zingy and Chrisworth, piling on the pressure, but making sure not to use Chrisworth as a 5th brake on the car there. And just backing off enough into the braking zone, making Chris wonder whether the move is coming. Chris might be looking in the mirrors. I wonder if Zingy is going to start moving around left and right now from the racing line. Just try and keep him guessing and take the opportunity wherever possible. Quintao leading by nearly a second as Chrisworth goes off in pursuit of the W today. Zingy right there to take advantage if anything befalls the front 2. And it is ebb and flow, the gaps between P1 and P2, and then P2 and P3. It is yo-yoing back and forth as the drivers with no worries about weather today. Lap 15 begins. Who's your money on? With 3 to go then, as Quintao is certainly hanging on nicely, seemingly with a good balance despite the dent in the rear fender. Chrisworth there just under 1 second, but of course there's no DRS assistance for our drivers here in the minis. That would be quite a sight, wouldn't it, if those rear wings started flapping around? But it's such a short circuit. You've got to nail every corner, every apex just perfectly to try and make the momentum count and gain an advantage on your great rivals here. It is Quintao ahead of Chrisworth. Both drivers a little bit wide, but certainly within the realm of reasonable driving behaviour. There's Raccoon just in the background. He'll be dismayed to see how fast these newcomers and returnees are at the front of the grid. Raccoon much more used to fighting for top honours. He's certainly going to have to lift his game if Quintao's in town and Chrisworth and Zingy continue with the pace that they currently have. It's great to see the competitiveness raised, everyone raising their game here for season 1. And you've got Zingy there just using the curve as much as possible. The gap's opening now. It's Quintao, Chrisworth and Zingy. Looks like Chrisworth more vulnerable to an attack from Zingy than Quintao is from Chrisworth. In second position, Raccoon in fourth. Captain Ahab 12 seconds off the lead at the moment. John has made absolutely no headway at the back of the grid. Unfortunately for him, he is a further 12, a full 25 seconds off the lead. The final lap begins, and my, how that has shot by. And Quintao leading with a good gap at the moment. Here is Captain Ahab on his last run down the full length of the main straightaway. Quintao possibly tyres not quite there, but he hooks up a late apex through turn 2 into Verth corner. Everything looking very straightforward, just staying legal as they run through turn 5, and then long run down towards Rin, comparatively long anyway, down towards Rin corner, crossed fully over the pit lane entry, trying to stay within track limits. We don't want any post-race steward inquiries. He goes out onto the curb, the green flashes by our camera position, and it looks like Quintao's going to take the win here at the Red Bull Ring ahead of Chrisworth and Zingy. The streak comes to an end for Zingy, but the podium streak remains. Brilliant to see, and take a look at this. Zingy setting a new session record points haul, 2 wins and a 3rd place, netting 32 points in a single session of racing. Congratulations to him, and back to the studio.
Thank you once again to Webbo, and we hope you've enjoyed this session. We'll see you next time in the Desert Rats Racing League.